Let's talk about
Yeah.
dating. Let's talk about dating someone, okay?
Yeah.
So you go on your first date, okay? And you tell the person, "Gosh, I don't like you. You're dirty. I don't want to have too much of you around. If I have too much of you around, then I'll be a bad person." Is that person going to keep on to date you? If
I
you
love this.
if you ignore that person, if you're married and you ignore your partner, are they going to stay married to you? If you act like they don't even exist, if you go out and you start dating a million other people and not paying attention and ignoring what you have right in front of you, are they going to stay? Do you trust your partner? Do you trust your partner is going to be there for you at all times?
Mm,
Money and our partner are actually, it goes to unconditional
I
love and
love that.
abundance.
Yeah.
Do you check your bank accounts? Do you check in on your partner? Do you talk? Are you okay having money? Are you okay having a relationship?
Oh my gosh.
How we show up in relationship.
Hola, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to episode 58 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. I've been on a little bit of a break, and that's because I have been lining up some great guests for this new season 3. Yep, this is season 3. 2021, and I started this podcast in 2019, and here we are starting season 3. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. My guest today shows that. She is Tara Page Truax, and from the segment that you heard in the beginning, you probably think that this conversation is going to be about relationships. And that's true in part, but it's more about the relationship that we have with ourselves and money, 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 money. Hey, all right now. The point is not that I can't sing. The point is what she is going to bring to this conversation around our ideas and concepts about money. And I was really intrigued when we were talking when Tara compared ideas around money with ideas around a romantic relationship. I was fascinated, and I think you will be too. It'll probably make a lot of sense to you. It certainly did to me. But it was something that I had never thought about. She's featured in publisher Kate Butler's Inspired Impact series. She's featured in the book Women Who Inspire, which comes out in late spring. And Tara wrote a chapter in the book, and she's going to share. She's going to share details about her own breakthrough that she wrote in the book. And Kate Butler, she has published a series of books about women's journeys and the breakthroughs that they've had and women's empowerment, which translates to anybody. It can translate easily to men and people of all ages and all backgrounds. I was actually featured in a book last year, Women Who Rise, from the Kate Butler book series. And down the road, I will be talking about what I wrote about in that book. And as I mentioned, I have quite a few authors who are going to be coming on the podcast and just share some powerful things that they learned through their own journeys. You know, as I said, we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. And that has been a challenging concept. I know for me in these recent weeks, certainly over the last year, but last week was kind of tough for me. And I'm finding for a lot of people just watching things unfold with mass shootings and separately violence with the police, and as well as the trial and events that are unfolding in Minnesota. So I will be talking about some of those things in separate episodes in Let's Start Healing's Ready and Real segments. But I just wanted to speak to that. so many of us are walking around in this world like, what the what? And I think that this conversation with Tara about just tapping into our own power is very healing across the board. And certainly when it comes to these things that we deal with on a day to day basis. So let's meet her. Let's get started and let's start healing. Welcome, Tara.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're in New Jersey, and I'm really excited for you to be here. And you are in an upcoming book, right?
Yes, I have written my story, shared my story in Women Who Shine. My chapter is our journey through my limiting beliefs and shame around money. And my own personal journey of going from 6 figures of debt to creating 7 figures of income and creating a business where I help people globally do the same thing, helping people work through their limitations, their coding, their old genetic coding around limiting beliefs around money. Because just to be honest, people carry more shame around money. And I know this from my own personal experience. The shame I carried around that debt was, people don't want to talk about money like they don't want to talk about sex. It's actually really a taboo conversation. And even as a child, remembering my mom being like, you can't ask someone how much they make, that's not okay. And to create a conversation that is real and healthy and open about money, so you're no longer bearing it and carrying the shame. Money's dirty, we shouldn't have that, they have this but we don't, so therefore we carry these different values and values around our own self-worth, values around what we're willing to receive. So our story that I'm sharing in there is our story from primarily getting into 6 figures of debt from my son's health, and it was really medical bills, but what that did for my own belief and what it did for my, I had horrible anxiety, and I felt like I had to carry the world and do all the things by myself, because if I asked for help, therefore I was weak. I wasn't willing to receive in any area. And so once I shifted those beliefs and opened up to receiving and opened up to limitless receiving and unconditional abundance and unconditional love and unconditional healing, how that shifted and transformed so quickly that people are still to this day like, I don't know what she did, but like some days I even look at myself and I'm like, who am I? They gave me a credit card with no limit. And I know what it was like to get my credit card that only had a $300 limit like 10 years ago. So,
well, how did you do that?
So how did I do what?
How did you make that shift in your ideas around money and finances for yourself?
Okay, so it was a process of personal growth. So I had created a business for about 3.5 years that I was working really, really hard in. And no matter what I did in that business, though I could make enough, I couldn't get beyond a point and I could not help other people succeed. Therefore, that business actually became what it felt like a burden to me. So I'm a retired professional dancer. I worked in the entertainment industry for years. And in that, one thing I love to do was teach and choreograph. And so I could take a young dancer and I could teach them all the skills they needed, and they could step into their true selves, find their creative ability, develop their own dreams and aspirations and help them grow to whoever they wanted to be. And I could help people produce success, like they could step into their dreams. And so when I created this business that I had for about 3.5 years, that was my aspiration too, to be able to do this with other people, other women. And I was not having that success. And so it turned into, what is wrong with me? There must be something wrong, because if I'm not able to do this, I took it as me, I must be broken. There's something wrong with me. I'm not doing something. So I started digging into personal growth like a ton, like probably more than even your average person. I mean, like 10 books a month, every podcast in the world, going to actual events and retreats and actually doing the work, not just going and taking notes and saying, "Hey, I went to this person and I sat in this row," but like actually like doing the stuff.
Right.
And it was just like layer upon layer. I was just done. I had like carried this backpack of what I call BS for so many years. And I was like, you know what? At that point, I was about to be 40. It was a lot of years of carrying this. I'm not showing out as my highest potential. I know there's more for me to show up as. And when we create resistance in our life, and if you push your hands together really hard, what your other hand does is it resists, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
everything I was coming up to was resistance. And I looked back in my life and everything I had achieved, it was like I had to create this resistance to say, oh, I surpassed it. Oh, I did it. Oh, I overcame. And
Mm-hmm.
one day it was literally like an aha moment. I woke up and I was like, you don't always have to go up against resistance to have success, Tara. Like, is it
It
okay
doesn't
to just
have to be
go?
hard.
It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be hard. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to climb the mountain and then go all the way back down to climb the mountain again. You actually don't. You're actually wise enough to build a flipping ladder and throw the ladder up to the next mountain. You don't have to do like this crazy thing. And I was like, okay. And so once I started shifting in me, and once I started letting go of what I saw as the wrongness of me, and this was like huge because instead of what is wrong here, and that's what I was doing, looking at everything like, what is wrong? How can I fix this problem? To looking at this isn't necessarily a problem. It's a possibility. And in this possibility, what could I be open to choosing that would create a new possibility? And as I started to shift that awareness to choice instead of victim, the funniest part is like I didn't consider myself like a normal victim mentality. Most of my friends and people around me didn't either,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not living in the possibility of choice. I was living in the space of reaction. This thing happened to me, therefore I reacted. This thing happened to me, therefore I reacted. So once I shifted to choice and I moved into proactive thought and proactive action,
What's the possibility when you're in that conflict where you think that I'm stuck?
yeah,
That's
well,
when you look at or something went wrong. That's when you look at the possibilities right
yes.
there. Mm-hmm.
And even shifting the perspective that instead of what's wrong, what's right about this I'm not seeing. And once I really shifted that perspective and what I call just, I took off my glasses because I feel like we all wear these glasses in our life. And those are the glasses of the backpack of the BS we carry our entire life. And that's how we see the world. And I was like, okay, let me take off these glasses. Oh man, I got other glasses. Let's just keep taking our glasses until I'm just here and I'm an observer. And it didn't happen overnight. That took time.
Mm-hmm.
That took time to get to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not going up and down the mountain. I'm staying on the top of the mountain. I'm going to be here as an observer. What is right about this I'm not seeing. Just
Just
experience.
watch it. Just watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Someone said to me yesterday, I was talking to someone yesterday and he said, I had in a meditation there was a giant eagle and I got on the eagle's back and the eagle's message for me was to stop looking at everything so focused and to get the bigger perspective because I was missing out on a lot of things. That's what you can do
Mm-hmm.
when you're up on top of the mountain instead of getting into the nitpicky.
Yeah.
So once I was able to do that, it actually started to shift many things, my relationships with people, my relationships in business, the relationship that and the partnership I had that needed to change, so I had to create a different business. And once I
Mm-hmm.
could let go, because sometimes we work so hard to build something and we're like, but I made this, I have to make it work.
Yep.
But sometimes it's just our lesson in learning to grow us. You know, we don't
Yeah.
always like the same clothes. We don't always want to live in the same house. We don't always want to stay in the same location, but that doesn't mean we stay just because we have to.
Right. Right.
So I had to learn to let go. And then once I opened up to creating a new business structure, that actually opened up, exploded. I was able to really embrace not what was wrong about me, but what I had learned and developed and what was so right about me. But sometimes, if you're not reflected with the people that reflect back to you the same things, you're not going to have success. And sometimes you just, like I said, you can drive a Ferrari, but if it has four flat tires, it's not going to go very fast.
Yes. And let me ask you something because everything you're saying is so powerful. And I was listening to some of your talks on YouTube. You were talking about when we're engaged in something, say we're engaged in a business we're trying to build or a project we're working on, and the going gets rough, and sometimes we might give up. And I think you were saying to, stick it out, just keep going. And what I was thinking about when I was listening to that is I feel like we have an energy, like in that moment where things are rough and, this is where I should just stick it out. I think that when that shift happens, to that breakthrough, we're in an energy of it's time for that to happen. Like the time is there. And then things just start flowing and flowing and flowing. Does
Yeah,
that make sense? Is that what you were saying?
yeah, it's alignment. And so I know what you're talking about. You're talking about what I was talking about with the popcorn. So I was talking about getting into a popcorn bag, and popcorn heats up. It gets so hot.
Uh huh.
Popcorn bag does not do anything for like 2 minutes. And you could be watching
Yeah.
in there going, it's not doing anything. Is it broken? It's a dud. And then in the last 3 seconds, it all pops and it all
Yeah.
explodes. But so many of the things we ask for, we pray for, we want in our life, we're actually not ready to receive. Because I asked a big group of people the other day, do you want to be a millionaire? And everyone's like, yes, I do. And I said, 90% of you, you're saying yes you do, but no you don't, because if not, if $1 million fell in your arms right now, you would give it away. You would have all the places you would want to give it. There was no way you would keep $1 million and put it into an investment, because of being a millionaire means you have $1 million in the bank, right? It means
Right.
it's invested, it's yours.
Right.
And you
Ooh,
all wanted
I
to
love
give it
that.
away, and they were like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And I said, and most of you, $1 million would fall in your arms and you wouldn't even think you're worthy of it in the first place. So then you would be like, who does this belong to? Who am I going to give it back to? Instead of owning it as you created this.
Being empowered.
Yes. And that
Yeah.
worthy of that,
Yeah.
because money is energy, money is exchange, money is, and we add things identifying to it. This is why I said money and sex, because people do the same thing with sex. They identify things to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's an exchange of energy and what we're able to truly receive. And are you willing to receive the thing you asked for? So it could be healing. You could be asking for unconditional healing. You could be struggling in your life with healing, but your story of your life that you carry on shows you showing up in multiple places, where when you get sick, someone shows up to care for you, or you finally get to rest, or it is your place to for self-care, or there is something in there that heal that issue, that thing happening physically in your body is telling you to pay attention so that you
Right.
can grow to this next level of yourself.
Right.
Same thing with money. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing with love. And if we really pull into the unconditional abundance, unconditional healing,
Yeah.
unconditional love, and embrace them all as is, you'll be open to see $1 million. You'll be like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So really it is. It's like not getting out of that popcorn bag before you pop. But really,
Right.
you got to listen to the heart, because there's going to be times in your gut where your gut's like, you need to get out of this bag.
Mm-hmm.
Start feeling than you saying, oh, I've done this so long, my heart tells me to stay, but I've been giving so much, and this person's having success, or this person's doing this, and you get in the comparison game, and your time limit, you start to ask for things, and you start to get into the mind of where is it and all the things. And when it's not there, then you become hyper aware that it's not there. And since
Yeah.
the law of attraction is working all the time, then you're hyper aware it's not there. So then you're creating more of it not being there.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's just being open, shushing the mind, being in the moment, being in awareness, and what, okay, who can I show up as today? Who can I show up as the best possible version of myself today, and take inspired action?
Mm-hmm.
Trust that all things are set up. We cannot ask the universe for help. We cannot ask the God for help. We cannot ask all divine energy for help if we're not willing to let them actually help.
Exactly. Exactly, exactly. What have you seen? I think this is just so powerful in the times we're in with this pandemic. I'm curious what you've seen. I want to just share something personal that, and I had this awareness. So in 2020. 2019 was a rough year for me. I'm a journalist and a writer, and I had been freelancing for 10 years, but I had a really stable freelancing gig. And so 2019, I didn't have that gig anymore. So I didn't have that income. So it was a really tough year financially. And I saw where just so quickly I could just go down, financially. And then, but by the grace of God, in 2020, I got a job as a journalist on staff. And it's been fascinating to see, and I mean that from an awareness perspective, to see people from all walks of life in this pandemic, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a small business owner, whether it's an individual that was a millionaire, to see them experience loss so fast and to see the fear. So, the things that I felt or can feel around money, or how fast I saw my own situation shift, I saw that this isn't just a me problem. I'm out here thinking, oh, it's just me, or there's something around me or about me, or I might have some shame around it, but I see that it's a common thing and that you can lose something just like that. What an individual goes through, a company, a large corporation can go through and lose just like that too.
And it affects so many other individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I was just wondering what you think about that, and what you're seeing around what you do, what you offer, the insight that you offer around the ideas of money during these pandemic times.
So all of that is tapping into fear. You're
Yeah.
tapping into fear and scarcity. See, there is a conditioned belief in the world that money is scarce, that money is a limited resource.
Yes.
That's a lie. I'm covered in goosebumps. That is a lie. Money is not a limited resource. Money is energy. It is an unlimited resource. We have tapped it into,
Yes.
you do this, you get paid for this. If I do this, I get this. See, it is old programming. It is programming we have taken on from our parents, our grandparents. See, there are other people in the pandemic, and my husband and I part of this, who 2020 was our best year in business ever. And part of that was because we continued to show up to provide solutions for people who had a need, not our own solution. What did someone else need? See, when we're able to, what the famous word of 2020 became, pivot.
Mhm.
Don't even say pivot. It's like open to awareness. What else is possible here? We get so narrow that this job or this thing, but what if that going away was the door to open for something bigger? Because you, as one consulting job left, and you were in your moment of what am I going to do? You opened up into something new, and in that you're able to show up in a new way, share your story in a new way, impact more lives in a new way. We have to understand that a big piece of our life is not us, it's who we get to show up for on the way. One of the most selfish things we can do is say this is just for me, because honoring you and doing it just for you are completely different.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
have to honor our house. We have to honor, which is our body. That's what I call our house, because this is where our soul lives. But in that, then we get to show up for other people. So, I mean, even I'll tell you, even yesterday when we bought our car, I was telling the guy we bought our car from, because he's going through some stuff and some personal stuff. And for whatever reason, I was actually going to go to a different car dealership that day and look at a different car. And I got in the car. I was at Target with my daughter. I got in the car, and instantly in my head, it was like, no, you're going to this car dealership and you're going to look at this specific car. It was so like, I was like, okay. And I literally texted my husband because he was going to meet me in a different place. I'm like, no, we're going here. And he's like, okay. So we get there and they don't even have our car. It's in transit still. And I said, and I started talking to the guy. The guy starts opening up to me about all these things. Well, in the meantime, there was something I needed to deliver. There was something for that person, the person he was there, that I needed to help him so that he could then help his wife or his ex-wife and his children, so that it was a bigger paying forward thing. And yet
Right.
I ended up with the car that was I mean, I'm so in love with my car. I've never in my life wanted to kiss my car, and I literally right now. But it wasn't in my head. I'm a firm believer we all love to pray and ask for things, but most of us are not going to be quiet enough to listen for the answer. So, shushing and meditating and listening for the answer, what I call listening to your heart. Our heart brain is the biggest thing. You know, we bypass our head brain. The head brain is the subconscious mind. 95% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are what everybody else thinks too, because we're all tapped into the same subconscious. Everybody has fear. Everyone has regret. Everyone has shame. Everyone has failed. Everyone, you name it, everyone has gone through it. Some more and some less.
That was so awesome. Everyone is tapped into the same consciousness. Not that we can't go higher or, we can't go to something, just so much more powerful. But we're, as human beings, we're tapped into those things that you just listed.
Everyone
Yeah.
has had an experience like that. Once you get usually out of your childhood, right? Because when we're in our childhood, that's when we're learning and identifying what those things even mean.
Mm-hmm.
See, you would never know what something is until you've experienced it. If you haven't experienced it, you've seen somebody else experience it. Therefore, you've identified that. This is what happens
Mm-hmm.
around money, and it happens early. You may not have had money, but you saw someone who had it. Maybe you heard your parents say, well, that person, they didn't give to the church, so they're bad. And then now you think, well, I don't want to be bad. I don't want to have money. Even though it's not rational, you actually take that on. Or maybe you had a ton of money and you saw somebody that didn't, and you saw them suffering and you felt bad because you couldn't help them. Therefore, you felt guilty. So you felt like you had to give it all away. I love to ask people, if money was your husband or your partner, would you still be married to them? Or if you were
Mm-hmm.
dating, would you still be dating them? Because often we treat money as if it's something outside of ourselves, just like you did with the job, or just like a corporation, that it has to be outside of ourselves. But it's a partnership, it's an energetic exchange. And if you treated money in the same way you treated your spouse, what would happen?
Say more about that. As in what? Value, caring about it, trusting
Oh,
it.
let's talk about
Yeah.
dating. Let's talk about dating someone, okay?
Yeah.
So you go on your first date, okay? And you tell the person, gosh, I don't like you. You're dirty. I don't want to have too much of you around. If I have too much of you around, then I'll be a bad person. Is that person going to keep on to date you? If
I
you
love this.
if you ignore that person, if you're married and you ignore your partner, are they going to stay married to you? If you act like they don't even exist, if you go out and you start dating a million other people and not paying attention and ignoring what you have right in front of you, are they going to stay? Do you trust your partner? Do you trust your partner is going to be there for you at all times?
Mm,
Money and our partner are actually, it goes to unconditional love
I
and
love that.
abundance.
Yeah.
Do you check your bank accounts? Do you check in on your partner? Do you talk? Are you okay having money? Are you okay having a relationship?
Oh my gosh.
How we show up in relationship, and this goes for unconditional healing too, with our body. You can
Hmm.
apply this to all three. It can be with a partner with unconditional love. See, and even then, is your partnership? Oh, this is good. Is your partnership with your spouse or whoever you're with? Is it conditional? You do this and I get this. See, that's what a lot of people do.
Mm,
If I do this for you, you will stay. See, then you do that with money. If I make this, you will stay. I'll have this. Money doesn't work that way.
right.
Relationships don't either. This
And
is
some people um don't, they have money but don't like to spend it because they're afraid they're going to lose it.
it's still because you fear it. If you're in your relationship, do you fear your partner's going to leave you? If you don't look a certain way, you don't dress a certain way, you don't have a certain job, you don't make a certain amount of money. See, that's all conditional. And then
Hmm.
you fear your money is going to leave you. Look, I came from a background of having money as a child. My parents had a lot of businesses. those businesses ended up flooding and going bankrupt. So I saw my parents go bankrupt. Then my parents got divorced when I was after that young. And so every time we had something, it was pulled out from underneath us. So when that happened, every time I had it, it was gone. So what I learned was when I have it, I better use it and keep it in space and spend it. And actually gave like hoarding like type of
Mhm.
thing, like a feeling, because I had to keep what I had because I was so scared that I wouldn't have it again, which is crazy because then I became a professional dancer, which is a feast or famine industry as well. So you make a ton of money and then you don't for a long time, and you make a ton of money and you don't for a long time. So it even created the pattern in my life.
Mm.
And my husband has a very similar, he was not a dancer, but very similar pattern. He also picked up from his parents of
Mhm.
not having enough. And
Mm.
so when those things show up in how we our relationship with money,
Right.
it's really like really it's deep. Like
It
it is
is deep. It
deep.
is deep. Tie this in with something I heard you say about a release letter,
Yes.
writing a release letter. Tie that in.
So, writing release letters to our limiting beliefs are my favorite thing to do. But so between usually 0 to 12 years old is when we program in our life what this life is. And so our experiences from 0 to 12, it's a lot of the things we believe based on the vision or the glasses we saw life, right? So me and my sisters and my mom, we all grew up in the same house together. There's a lot of girls, and one experience happened, and all of us will tell you a very different experience, completely different experience from my mom, who actually had the experience, who it's night and day different. And that is a testament that we all saw it through the glasses of who we were, the wounds we carried, who we were at the time, what we felt like we didn't get, what we were missing, whatever that was. So I use this a lot with my business, with my team, with my leaders in my group. So I run a very, very, very large network marketing. I'm a leader in a network marketing company. So I have a very, very large team. And yes, we have men, but it's a lot of women. And women tend to be more emotional than men, not always, but truly more. And this has been a way for me to really help some of our leaders develop and grow past the emotion of the past of the baggage they're carrying, release the emotion and use the past as wisdom. So what I do, and you can do this around money. So I'll ask you, Adrienne. So for example, go to a time in your life between usually 0 and 12 where a time where something happened around money that you remember,
Mhm.
that you happen around money that triggers you. So, like I explained, around a time like when my parents went bankrupt, right? I can remember that time. So just write it down on the paper.
Mhm.
So then you sit down, you take about, it takes about 20, 30 minutes. I always like to light a white candle, create a nice space of quiet. And I write what is called a release letter. So we write a letter to our parents. So if I heard my mom say that at that experience, I write a letter to her from my experience of that time. And often when we start writing, it actually is kind of slow because we're thinking, we're still in our head and we're trying to figure it out. The idea is you don't figure it out because you're bypassing your brain and you want to move into what I call basically free writing. So it's bypassing you and you're letting the emotion out. And
It's
so
important to handwrite it.
handwriting, some people do like to type, but I will tell you there's a physical action of having paper that is from the earth and your hand physically moving that actually moves emotions versus typing. When you type, you're actually going into something man-made with electronics, and it can actually not get as clear. Not to say it's wrong, because some people, they just type and that's what comes through, and if it works for you, good. But handwriting works, another reason, because after you're done, you want to burn it, and it's hard to do it if it's in your computer. But regardless, so you put all the energy on the paper and you write, and what happens is your handwriting might get messy. It will start to just go. You don't have to worry about punctuation, you don't have to worry about anything, and you let all your emotions out. Sometimes there's a lot of cuss words, sometimes there's just things you want to say that you never said, like when I saw her feel that way, this is what I felt, and letting it go until you get to a place of love, compassion, forgiveness, or understanding for the person you're writing it to. And forgiveness, truly, I encourage you guys to get to the forgiveness of yourself, because forgiveness never has to do with another person.
Mm.
Forgiveness has to do with our perspective of how we
Mhm.
felt. So, loving forgiveness of ourself and truly acknowledging that person was doing the best they could with what they had. Because once we really get to the place that everybody, no matter what our perception is doing the best they can with what they had, it's our perception that it should have been different. We should have had a different outcome. Remember, God's hand is on everything, right? So getting that place forgiveness, then we will finish the letter off. Then you tear it up and you burn it. Just don't burn it in your house and like start a fire or anything. Like do it outside. I don't want to like get some phone call that. But and worst case, if you can't, tear it up really small, flush it. Please don't do it if you have septic, you'll clog your tanks. But it needs to be earth grounded, get out, release the energy. Now, what often
Mhm.
happens is when that comes up, you'll realize you need to write a release letter to another parent, or another memory will come up. And you can do this as much as you want. I also encourage people to write a release letter to money in general. And you can just sit down with money and just say, Money, what do you mean to me? And just start asking questions. And if you have a hard time tapping into, just start asking questions. Money, how do you feel? Money, what do you taste like? Money, what service do you provide? Money, why are you even here? Just start asking the questions, because once you start asking the questions, again, you'll bypass the brain. Whenever we're in the brain, we're only tapping into what we already know. And to have a different outcome, you have to bypass the brain that got you to where you are and open up to a new possibility. So that's why that free writing can release that energy. Now, the story of your past releases the emotion because you released the energy. And now a story without emotion attached becomes wisdom, which is why I love the women who the impact series books. You're
Mhm.
taking the stories without the emotion to share wisdom to help other people on their journey.
Right, right. You're saying so many things that are so rich. And one of them is when you mentioned forgiveness. I mean, we all know, maybe we don't all know, but many of us know how important it is to forgive because it helps us. You know, it's for me. But the thing that you brought is it releases our perception of what we thought took place. That's the thing.
And honestly, the only person showing up in your life is you.
Yep, absolutely.
So if somebody's in your life, and for most of us, it's probably going to be a parent or family member that we often, you know, we're going to see,
Yeah.
we still get to choose how we show up,
Mhm.
regardless of anyone else. This is one of the most empowering tools I've learned. Now, I have limits and I have
Yeah.
boundaries. I have a time limit of certain places I can be for a certain amount of time.
Yep.
Okay, boundaries are good, but also knowing that you have a say for me, for both of my parents, for what we've gone through in our life,
Mhm.
coming to a place of loving forgiveness because they're the only two parents I have regardless.
Mhm.
And the wisdom I can learn from them from different eyes as an observer, not what should have, could have, would have, this person had. Mm-mm.
Yeah. To your point, my father passed away when I was 21, and I've always been close to him spiritually. And but then all of a sudden, a few years ago, I started having these dreams that he abandoned the family. And he didn't abandon the family, he died. And I just kept having these dreams. They were so disturbing. All of a sudden I said, let me do this. It was like around the anniversary of his passing, and I started writing to him in my journal that I forgave him for dying. I started writing about, just the impact of him dying. And then when he would appear because he would appear in the dreams before that as someone I hadn't seen in a long time. He didn't want to be there. He, had abandoned the family. And I just felt like, oh, please, please stay. It was my perception of something that didn't even happen. I mean, I know that, but just releasing that in my journal Just I stopped having these dreams that were not true.
And truly, he
Yeah.
would have felt that he abandoned the family when he left, though it wasn't his choice to leave.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by you releasing that too, it also released him to go show up for, energetic
Yeah.
for all of you guys in a better way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Tara, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's just so rich and so deep. And I want to ask you a little more about yourself spiritually, and just about your own journey, and what is your knowing of God for you?
So I have had a very interesting journey around this. Very different than a lot of people. So I was raised Catholic, but my family, my dad is a spiritual healer. My uncle has written a lot of books on sacred geometry. My grandmother was a lifelong Rosicrucian, so they've done all kinds of work in spiritual things and done all kinds of travels all around the world. I went to graduate school for spiritual psychology. And in my experience in that, where I saw people from I was young, in my early 20s, where they claimed or showed talked about spiritual practices not showing up in an aligned way, I shut everything out completely for a very long time. And because of that misalignment, it didn't make sense to me. And so I found my spiritual connection through dance, through creation. I could go in the studio, and what would come in and out, it was divine
Mhm.
source. It was how I could move. Everyone would go to church on Sunday, I would go to the studio, and it was my connection. Creative energy was my connection. Now, as through time I got into a lot, like freehand writing and connecting and what people call conversations with God and stuff, I that has completely shifted. And now I am, open to source energy, the universe. I there's a million names for whatever people want to call whoever is. I'm really into quantum physics, and that existing on time, energy, and space exist at all times, and moving into an awareness versus that we can only see what's in front of us. I am a firm believer that Jesus is still walking the earth right now, and I am a believer in that, as in, if you go through, in the quantum field, he is, because time
Mhm.
doesn't exist, right? So in that space, and people were like, well, how can you believe it, you can't see it, but yet you believe in God and you can't see it. So it's
Right.
all the actual same thing. So
Yeah.
now, I am completely open to all things energy, source, alignment. I'm blessed and grateful to be open to be able to channel the things that serve others and be able to give people whatever needs to come out through trainings, through healing, through that. But yes, so I think that maybe answer the question.
It did. Well, so in all of that, is there, and I know it's not just one time or in one area, but when are some of the moments when you most feel the spirit of God? Like you're very present and you feel that connection, like right in the moment.
Yeah, so I get it actually often. So many times when I'm on stage training, I had a recent experience. I call it blacking out, because I don't know what's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I am a pure channel. So I know I was there, I know I was speaking, and I know something happened, and I don't know what happened because it comes in and out. That
Mm,
was the same experience I used to have choreographing, teaching. I used to have people that would take notes for me because I don't often know even what I say or what I would choreograph because it was a clear channel. I have the same experience often being outdoors, being grounded. This is why I love to be outside, laying on the earth, laying in the ground. I love water. Water is very, very grounding to me. In that experience, like I'm traveling to the mountains again this next week, where I can just be in nature, something that's not man made, that is connected to the earth and that energy, and really just be open and present into what God wants me to hear, God wants me to
mhm,
see, and then to also reflect that back in people. So to be connected with people, to see people's eyes. This is one thing about the past year, and to not be around people
mhm,
that really was just People need people. They just do. We need people. I don't even care. I'm an introvert. We need people. And to look at people and to connect with people and to feel their hearts. Some of the most brilliant moments I have recently are with my 3-year-old daughter. She's just hysterically funny, but also just she's so real and so raw and so authentic. And as adults, we forget that. We forget that joy
Yeah.
and to be in the moment. But I do, I don't consciously say, okay, I'm grateful for this tree and I'm grateful for this car, and I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I take gratitude for the moments of, this is a really deep inhale. Okay, my body's feeling a little stiff. Let's see how I can open this up. Okay, wow, this is a release. I'm so grateful. My body wants to flow with me, and my body, like, so just
Mm-hmm.
connecting to who I am, feeling present, being in my body, creating space that I enjoy being around, though I don't enjoy being around my kids' toys everywhere, which my house, but finding joy in that because they won't always be here,
Mm-hmm.
children. So those are all the places I really try to encompass that in.
Yeah.
I don't always win, but I try.
Can you summarize with all that you do and the way that you empower people, what you think that God calls you to do for yourself and for others through your work?
Yeah. So my mission statement for my life is I'm showing up as the highest version of myself to help others show up as the highest version of themselves with ease, joy, grace, and glory. But my true purpose in all areas, and it's written right here. I have this picture right behind my computer. A woman that has all these tattoos that says strong enough and kind enough and smart enough with music. It's a beautiful painting, but right above it says, my strength is and will always be setting people free.
I
Whether it's
love that.
free from their health limitations, whether it's free from the breakage or bondage of the
Oh,
limiting beliefs that prevent them from showing up in unconditional love, or it's that energy of receiving and money in infinite abundance. It is setting people free so that they
mm-hmm.
can show up as the highest version of themselves. And it will
Yeah.
always be that.
Yeah. I usually ask people if they're a healer or a seeker. And I mean, you're obviously a healer, but are you a seeker in some ways as well?
Yeah, because I always am seeking to find, and it really, this is very recent, but to find the people that are going to be on the journey with me to create even more healing.
Mm.
So I'm not seeking for something necessarily outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeking for other, what I call more receivers, people that are open to receiving beyond the conscious mind, but that are here to show up and heal as we can really create waves. Because
Yeah.
I do believe as a collective, we can create more waves.
Yeah.
That's where I seek. I think because I do believe everything is truly inside of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, or above ourselves, or wherever wherever you want to place it. But
Yeah.
it's not external. But I do believe in other people helping us get there. That we actually are
Mm-hmm.
not meant to do it on our own. We're not created to do it on our own
Mm.
at all. And that by really seeking those individuals who are here to support us, that because we're all different, your strengths and my strengths are completely different, yet together we can create something really cool that you
Mm.
can do by yourself and I couldn't do by myself. And we can do that with so many different personalities. And then what? See, it's not competition, it's creation. When
Yeah.
we move to that, I just got goosebumps. Then, yeah, I'm seeking for other creators. That's what I'm seeking.
I so appreciate this conversation. I just think it just opens up, it's going to open up so many people. So thank you. And before we go, I would love for you to share more about your dance career and were you dancing from childhood and what were you doing as a profession in dancing? If you
Yeah.
share a little of
no, one ever,
that.
no one ever asked me that anymore. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I grew up dancing from the time I was 3. That's all I wanted to do was move to New York. Since actually, so really, really quick, funny story. My grandmother took me to a fabric store when I was 3 years old, and the fabric store was called New York Fabrics. Well, I went home and told my mom that my grandma took me to New York. Well, we lived in California. I And my mom is like, no, you didn't. And yeah, I went to New York. I went to New York. And so I never stopped talking about going to New York. And my grandma remembered that. So when I was 18, I went to college for dance. I have my degree in dance and choreography. I ended up getting an agent and traveled all over the world. And at 22, I moved to New York to dance. And my grandmother's like, it's about time. You've been talking about that since you were 3 years old. But I had a very blessed career, was able to travel with multiple platinum selling rock bands, traveled all over the world, able to choreograph, was artistic director, created multiple shows. And really just, I really not only loved performing, but the funniest part of this all is the reason I was a dancer is because I was too scared to use my voice. And
Wow.
it's a huge part of my story now. Um,
Yeah.
I love to be able to express, and I needed to move my body. I actually have a
Yeah.
very hypermobile body, and I dance was something I was very talented at naturally.
Yeah.
But using my voice was what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Yet using my voice was where I carried so much shame. I would be
Uh,
called Mumbles from Happy Feet. So if you know the movie Happy Feet, he's a penguin that dances while all the other penguins sing. And they, he shouldn't sing because he squawks. So I actually have a great singing voice, but there were some people around me that really tried to shun my voice. And as a child, even things that came up over time where, you're not supposed to speak, don't speak till you are, there's just a lot of old programming that I took on as mine.
uh-huh.
Speaking became a very difficult thing for me. And it wasn't until last year I had an incredible mentor who he sat down with me and for months told me, you are going to have to train, you're going
Mm.
to have to speak, you're going to have to get over this. And so I sat down and I started studying speakers and I started getting into the stuff that was preventing my voice
Mm.
and me showing up. And again, this is me speaking on money, but also speaking on all things
Yeah.
that are hard. Because when, as a dancer, ironically, most of the time you're a backup dancer. Even the greatest dancer on stage, I'm behind a band, I'm behind
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you get your time, but you're not really shining. You're helping someone else shine.
Yeah.
And I had more to share and I had more to say. And so I studied the things and did the things, and I didn't die the first time he put me on stage in front of 3,000 people, though I did think I was going to die. In past times I've been
Yeah.
to talk and stuff and nothing would come out. Like it would like nothing would come out. So the fact that I was able to do that, now it's become something I actually love. And so,
Wow.
though I still love to dance and I love to move my body, I only love to move it for me. And yes, my
Mhm.
career was great. And yes, I got to go a lot of places,
Mhm.
a lot of things, and meet a lot
Mhm.
of people. Got to meet Aretha Franklin. Oh my gosh. So, like, really cool experiences. It's all
Yeah.
a really cool part of my journey in to step into my voice.
You know what's so clear about what you just shared is that your dancing career before you got to this point that you're talking about speaking, that was meant to be, to that was a part of your creativity, that was a part of your growth. Like, you were meant to experience all of that within your body. That was a part of your spirit and still is,
Mhm.
but it was necessary. That's what seems clear to me, that was necessary for you to grow into and be the voice that you are. Do you think so?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I love like I love moving. I
Yeah.
love and it also was a big part of me getting into healing because before I
Hmm.
even opened up my money blocks, I've worked as a medical intuitive for a very long time. That is one place I've always been connected. I could see energetics run through people. I could see healing. I used to have a movement therapy business in that because I could unwind patterns that were emotionally tied in areas to release people into healing. It was what I was gifted to do. I didn't love to do it. I was gifted to do it, but I didn't love to do it. I wouldn't even make business cards. I would be booked out weeks in advance because of referrals, but I wouldn't even make business cards because I didn't love to do it. I was just showing up how I was supposed to show up with the gifts I had at the time.
And what didn't you love about that?
Healing, like physical healing, yes, it's a natural gift, but it's not my thing. I
Yeah.
love breaking people free from the money blocks. I
Yes.
love what happens when people are open up to receiving. Like when I can help people really block the things that's blocking them from receiving the ultimate of what they want to receive, to me, and how then that shows up in their life with their
Mhm.
children and the freedom that brings. One of my dear friends, she's opposite. She's all about the healing. And when she was doing all the money stuff, she was saying the same thing. She's like, I got the money stuff and I can help the business do the thing, but it doesn't drive me like when I want to do the health stuff.
Yeah.
I'm opposite, but I didn't know that. I didn't know it until I learned the other thing. And so sometimes we have to look at our gifts and just step into them and do the thing. But then when we're called to take inspire action to the next level, take it, even though if it seems scary. Because one thing, like you said, with me dancing physically, I love all of it and it's part of the journey, but it's not the end destination, and it will never be your end destination until the day you leave this earth. And even then, it's not even, I don't believe, our end destination. It's only a moment.
Mhm.
Use the time you have your physical body here to show up and serve people, whatever is called in your heart, even if it seems scary. The only reason it seems scary is you haven't done it before, or you're comparing to somebody else, which that's not your journey either. Just keep your eyes on you and listen to your heart and take that inspired action.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's
And
great.
just to, if you want to offer any of your listeners, I am happy to do a 30-minute time with them on limiting beliefs around money and business. They can go to my Instagram or my Facebook and shoot me a message, and I'm happy to do a free 30-minute consultation with them.
Thank you for joining us. Go contact Tara Page Truax on Facebook or Instagram. You can also see her videos on YouTube. And remember, you can listen to all of our Let's Start Healing episodes on traditional podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Also, send me an email at letstarthealingpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, let's start healing.